Hello and welcome to this week's GTA 5 o'clock. Hope you're well out there. My name's Tim Weaver. I'm here with Dan Dawkins. How you doing, Dan?
Very good, thanks.
Okay, so this week we're going to attempt to put together 2 GTA missions based on the evidence that's been put out there in trailers and in screenshots. We're going to piece them together in chronological order so we can see how the missions work. Dan's going to fill in the details and add a bit of kind of flesh to the bones of what the screenshots are telling us. The first one we're going to do is the FiB building mission, which was sort of laid out in the Game Inform exclusive last year. And then we're going to do the cargo plane mission, which we touched on in last week's show, and also which as we're going to include some of the stuff that you've posted in the comments thread of last week's episode, because it was some really interesting stuff, some interesting theories, and we promised that we'd mention some of the really good ones this week. So we'll do that in the cargo plane mission, which we'll do second. But first of all, Dan, let's talk about the FiB building mission. Don't know either of the official names for the mission, so we're just going to call it the FiB building mission. I doubt whether that's going to be the actual final name.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about this is because it was outlined in the Game Informer article, we've got a really good idea of the chronological order of the screenshots, which we can then splice with clips from the second trailer, which do show off aspects of this mission. Now, basically what happens is Trevor, who's the sort of psychopathic nutcase, and Michael, who's the sort of retired ex-con suave smart guy, they are under the spotlight of the FIB or the FBI, and in order to take the heat off them, they have agreed to snatch a suspect on behalf of the FIB from the IAA building, and that's effectively the CIA. So what's happening is the FBI are snatching a guy from the CIA. They've got Trevor and Michael to do it. Now, this is the first time that Michael meets Trevor, which we're told in the Game Informer article, and in fact this ties up with the evidence of what we see in trailer 2.
Michael meets Trevor, or Franklin meets Trevor?
Sorry, Franklin meets Trevor. Yeah, as we see when they're talking to each other and he's saying, hey, you've got a messed up family and all this kind of thing, and they're wisecracking each other. Now, what happens is, when they first meet, Michael and Trevor, this is a bit of background, Michael and Trevor are talking, and Trevor's actually quite concerned about springing a friend of his called Brad. Now, Michael has to sort of calm him down and say, we'll get to Brad later. So that's an interesting side character who may become relevant later on. Franklin's introduced. Franklin is amazed at how psychopathic and crazy Trevor is. Trevor's giving a security guard at the FIB helipad a really hard time. Franklin's like, wow, who is this guy? Michael has to step in and say, you sure you want to do this? And Franklin reaffirms his commitment to the mission. What happens then is Trevor, who's a sort of ex-army pilot, takes control of the chopper. Michael suits up into a sort of abseiling garb, as fits the mission. Now, Franklin, I don't know how he gets there, whether he's taken the chopper or he's dropped off, but Franklin takes a position opposite the IAA building with a sniper rifle to provide cover. They basically then they go up past the Vinewood sign in the chopper, taking in sort of that side of Hollywood.
So they start off here. This first screenshot we're seeing now is quite a familiar background. We've talked about this in previous shows. You've got the water tower there, which I believe is in real life called the Pilot Water Tower or something like that, and it's in a place called Vernon in Los Angeles, which is kind of like central, sort of fairly central Los Angeles. So you'll also be able to see on the map we've got going on here that this is somewhere in the middle of Los Angeles / Los Santos at this point. Presumably this is a FBI helipads, or an FBI kind of store, I don't know what you call somewhere where you store helicopters.
It's an FIB storage helipad.
So right, yeah. So they've all met here. The sun's coming up. You can see that because in the next couple of screenshots you see that it's actually the sun's completely up, the day's much brighter, so they obviously meet first thing in the morning when it's still quite dark. Dan, in the second screenshot, explain why we think that the helicopter is an army helicopter in the background in the second screenshot, and yet it's not the army helicopter that they're flying.
All it is basically, if you watch trailer 2, there's like a continuity conversation where they're talking about who are your crazy friends and your family and all that type of thing. As that conversation loop continues, it flips from in the background there being the civilian chopper to the army chopper.
Right.
Now it must be they've just got a couple of choppers held at this FiB helipad, and we're just seeing the same scene from two different angles. So as a result, it looks like it's swapped choppers, but we're just seeing it from a different angle.
Okay, cool. So second screenshot here, we're seeing them in front of the army helicopter. Just a third screenshot, they're still chatting away, just about to get on the helicopter there. Franklin getting up in the fourth screenshot, getting up close and personal with Trevor. We're not sure whether these are like the exact kind of. We're pretty sure this is a fairly chronological, but it might be that these first couple of screenshots are in slightly different order. And then we go to the fifth screenshot where the helicopter is going passes the Vinewood sign. Now, in the how we think the mission plays out, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we think they go past the Vinewood sign on the way to the FiB building, and then at the end come back via the Vinewood sign.
There's screenshots later on with the Vinewood sign in the background where they're clearly being intercepted or chased. Now, it seems exceedingly unlikely they'd be chased and intercepted before the mission, and then the chopper looks fine when it just doesn't make sense. So I think it's pretty clear that happens afterwards and they fly past the Vinewood first.
You can see again that the helicopter is not the Army issue helicopter that we saw in the background, proving that the Army issue helicopter is just there in that FiB kind of holding pen. So we'll just quickly go through these screenshots as the helicopter heads past the Vinewood sign, or maybe it heads towards downtown first from the water cooler and then past the Vinewood sign. We're not quite sure on that, but you can see it's gradually the helicopter's getting closer and closer to downtown until eventually the FiB building comes into view.
Now this is the thing I find spectacular about this entire mission, is that if this geography is correct, the FiB tower is almost opposite the IAA tower, which
that's
seems
bad
like
government planning.
Yeah, that's quite an audacious heist to knock on your next door neighbour and steal their key prize targets. So again, it might be that the key screenshot we look at here is slightly deceptive because they're huge buildings, and it might actually be there is quite a separation distance between them.
Yeah.
But in these screenshots, it almost looked like you could fire a paper plane across from the two. Quite weird. But anyway, the guys go across in the Civvy chopper. They make their way to the top of the IAA building, at which stage Franklin is in another building with a sniper rifle. Michael gets out and he goes onto the top of the IAA building.
Are we just there? Are we to assume that Franklin is in the FiB building here? Because if it's an FiB mission that they're on, and he's sniping from another building close by.
I know, this is the weird thing I can't get my head around, because in the Game Informer article it says Franklin has already perched with a sniper rifle in a nearby building, ready to react if things get violent. But why would you, if you're the FiB, have a guy with a sniper rifle out of your own building shooting at the building that looks like it's 5 metres away?
Yeah, it does seem a bit...
It just seems insane. I just surely they put him in a different building.
Because in these screenshots it looks like the chopper's actually landing on the FiB building. So
unless they're dropping him off.
Yeah.
This is all speculation, so I wouldn't read too much into this exact section of it. And again, it's not outlined in Game Informer. Could be he gets dropped off. Key thing is anyway, Chopper then heads to the IAA building where Michael is dropped on top, and you see him and he begins to rappel down the side of the skyscraper. Now apparently when you're playing this, the mechanic's very similar to something like Rainbow Six Vegas. You've got full control of the camera. You can see from the screenshot it's kind of panning out, and maybe you can pan with the right stick and see all around you.
Just a quick aside, I mean it looks, I know this is an older screenshot, but once again it really, I mean technically that's pretty impressive stuff, isn't it? I mean,
it looks amazing.
Yeah,
it's great.
Mean, you can see the cars moving along the freeways, and you know you can see for quite a long way. But anyway,
and it says you can descend manually with a stick. You can see people going about their day-to-day business as you slowly inch down, or go meters by meters down the side of the skyscraper. We can see it here. Beautiful sunset. You see people inside the building. The musical score, and this is a first for GTA, will increase and ramp up as you get closer to your target. It's increasing the sense of tension. Now finally, when you get to...
sorry Dan, just to interrupt, the sunrise or sunset in the background, we're not quite sure on the timing here, because obviously they were at the FBI helicopter pen thing when the sun looked like it was coming up, and now it looks like it's coming up again. So I'm not sure whether that maybe it just got bright and then maybe Los Santos works on a different.
Yeah, the sun comes up twice in the morning and leaves at night. I think again this might either be because they just screen capped these images at different times of the day, or we've got one in the wrong order.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think it's basically taking place in a daytime, early morning scale. So when he gets to where the target is, he looks inside and he can see in fact you can see it just in the screenshot. There's like a lady interrogator who's quizzing a man, and I say quizzing, she's actually threatening to insert a 18-inch mag light, which is, if you've seen, in fact you can see her holding it there, that's a large mag light. Now she's telling the guy sitting down, I want to place this mag light without lubrication in an area of your body where it will grievously and seriously hurt you.
Yeah.
The guy obviously doesn't want that to happen, and Michael sits there hovering as the lady or one of the interrogators smashes the mag light on the dude's fingers, which is actually better than where else they were going to stick it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you'd rather have that.
But then at this point, this is where, well, just before this, we hear the guy who's being interrogated saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I install camera equipment, not surveillance. Now, we don't know who he is, but it sounds like he's some kind of comms or surveillance expert. Not for today, probably, but this might tie into my wider thing about the incidence of CCTV and cameras throughout Los Santos. And again, the idea of maybe the blimp being some kind of viewing station. Some of the police choppers have surveillance cameras in the nose of the things. And I wonder if throughout the game there's a feeling or a theme about lack of privacy, you're always being watched, which may or may not tie into multiplayer. And the ability to film people and sort of create edits and that kind of thing. That's purely speculation, but it's interesting that this guy's big on surveillance, and either way the FIB want him. At this point, when they're about to do something really grievous to him, Michael bursts through the window, grabs the target, and he holds him hostage with one arm in that sort of classic pose where he's holding him by the face and he's got his pistol out in the other. Now this is where the game's big change takes effect, where you can now choose to either continue playing as Michael and shoot your way out past the sort of interrogators, or you can flip view to Franklin in the building opposite and snipe those targets from distance, giving Michael clear passage to escape.
Right, okay.
Now, eventually, he does shoot his way out, and Trevor hovers in and comes to pick you up. And then, then ensues a helicopter chase above downtown Los Santos. I
wonder if we're to assume that they take this mysterious surveillance man with them, or whether they just... it's difficult to say. He could be in that helicopter, he might not, I guess. But...
Well, it says here, after Trevor picks up Michael and the targets, it looks like they're taking them with him.
Yeah.
What happens then is as the downtown chase happens, as we can see here, you can either play as Michael, still in his abseiling gear, with an automatic rifle shooting out the window at sort of pursuing choppers. Or you can take the role of Franklin again and try and snipe at those choppers. Or you can play as Trevor, the pilot, and I guess weave between big downtown skyscrapers trying to lose the pursuance.
Right, okay.
But eventually, after taking out a few of the pursuing helicopters, the crew return to the FIB helipad, and that's the end of the mission.
Okay, so we can see that it actually... Well, earlier, just to finish off, when we were talking earlier about it coming back towards Vinewood, you can see that in this screenshot of Michael. There's Vinewood in the background. So they've kind of gone in a central LA to downtown via Vinewood at some point, then back to Vinewood, and then the mission's over. So, anything else to add there, Dan, or should we move on?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay, we're going to move on to the second mission, which we're going to try and attempt to map out, which we're calling the cargo plane mission, or planes, trains and automo thrills. I don't think they'll call it that.
Is that your name or Rockstar's?
I'm not sure. So Dan, tell us a little bit about this one. This isn't detailed in Game Informer. This is what we've attempted to kind of piece together ourselves. Some of you came back with some really interesting things, because we sort of touched on this a little bit in the last episode. Dan, take it away.
Yeah, it's time to don the speculation gloves because this evidence is a little bit reeky. Okay. But I don't want to discredit it too much because this is what
you mean. It's amazing.
Yeah, obviously. What I mean is this is fantastic, and this will change your life. This is what we talked about last week, where we speculated on a few of the screens and the fact that we saw Trevor piloting a cargo plane. Now we're linking together a few different sets of screenshots and clips from trailers here, but it seems like there's going to be a mission where you have Trevor piloting a large cargo plane. Now, clearly, cargo plane holds cargo. And as we know, in fact, the part of the cargo, as seen in the trailer, is a army jeep. Now, we're putting sort of two and two together, but we think that army jeep is possibly significant and probably holds the desirable item in question. And we see the back of the cargo plane open up, Trevor dive out with a parachute and the cargo plane go with him. And we also see in another separate screenshot Franklin on like a dirt scrambler bike pursuing what looks like a smoking and damaged plane, which looks like the cargo plane. Now he's in a sort of desert out in the sticks type area when he's doing that, and it's intriguing to note that as Trevor jumps out of the cargo plane, he's also over the sticks. Which again, we'll talk about the location in a second. The interesting element in this, and I don't know if we're again putting two and two together to equal radioactive cheese or something, but there is in one of the screens, the screen where there's when we can see Trevor in the top of the cargo plane, there's a fighter jet next to him. Now this fighter jet has the numbers 996 on the tail. In fact, we had an interesting post last week from Sir Princey, who says, the last part, when he was talking about the planes, I noticed the fighter jet had the number 996. So I looked at the screenshots, and I noticed this same jet appears in another picture shooting down a helicopter. He says, maybe this is Michael piloting the jet, giving some air support to Trevor. And he says, we know that they take different types of jobs by switching characters. Now, this is an interesting theory, but as we discussed last week, it looks like the pilot of this 996 fighter jet is wearing a helmet. Now there's a separate screenshot, one of the very first batch of screenshots Rockstar released, where we can very clearly see Michael in the fighter jet, but he's not wearing a fighter jet helmet. Now there's all sorts of things, like he might have just put the helmet on, he might have taken it off, that kind of thing. But what is clear is the 996 jet, if it's the same one, is definitely the one we see shooting down a helicopter. Because you can see the 996 in the same position on the tail. And when you look at the shot of Michael piloting the jet fighter, which is sort of set at night, the fighter jet he's piloting has exactly the same missile configuration along the wings as the plane, the fighter plane that shoots down the chopper. So there is something to link all three shots.
So it could be him.
So it could be be Michael. It's an assumptive leap, but it could be, and it could be that he's providing fighter plane support to Trevor in the cargo jet.
Well, that's what I mean. When we were discussing it off air before we started recording this, I said to you, why would that fighter jet in this screenshot where it's shooting down a helicopter? Why would that fighter jet be shooting down a helicopter? Because in the previous mission, in the FiB mission, the helicopters generally are being used, apart from the one that Trevor's piloting, are generally being used to stop them. You have to assume that they've come from the FiB or the IAA or whoever, And here again, there's a helicopter out there. Now, it won't be a helicopter that any of our three main characters are on, so it has to be a helicopter that's sent out, presumably, I would think, to stop them from achieving their goal, which is why I didn't know whether it made more sense for Michael to be the pilot of that plane, because it makes more sense for Michael to destroy this helicopter than the other scenario, which is some random guy from the Air Force destroying a helicopter. Unless that helicopter... the helicopter could be like a friend of Michael or whoever, but it just seems more likely that it would be a...
It makes sense, and would also make for a great mission dynamic if, for example, and this is tying all the elements together, one thing is piloting as Trevor in the cargo plane, and like probably trying to hold things together as you're getting peppered with, let's say, helicopter fire.
Yeah.
The other strand would be piloting a fighter jet, quite possibly, you know, catching up behind or chasing other people to try and support. And you can imagine it. You can imagine like a depleting armor bar on the cargo plane as you're zipping about as Michael in the fighter jet trying to wrestle with the controls. And then a third strand might be Franklin at another location, and they're hammering on the way in the radio saying, "Oh, we're heading for this location. You've got to meet us there, Franklin." And he's whizzing along the streets trying to weave through traffic, and he's like, "I'll meet you there, guys. I'll see you there." And I'm speculating completely.
But that actually seems very, very plausible.
Yeah, and it's exciting, isn't it? It's like 3 different sort of strands of chase scene. And then it looks like clearly whatever happens, something goes wrong with the cargo plane. Looks like he gets shot. And we can see in the shot, you know, Trevor bailing out, sticking on his parachute. The big Jeep is going out with him. Now, and again, that's very A-team. And finally, in the final shot, we see Franklin on a dirt bike heading out towards the sticks area, chasing a damaged plane. So it's not beyond the realms that it goes down in that region, or even as we speculated last week, that the plane goes down, it overshoots the desert, it goes into a watery region, and you end up having to recover something from under the sea.
Yeah, that's certainly what a few people in the comments said this week, that wonder whether it might land in the sea, and then you have to don your diving gear and go and recover it. You know, the only thing I'd say with the one of Franklin on the dirt bike is that if you sort of speculated earlier that the sort of key of the mission, whatever it is they're carrying in that cargo plane, might be in the Jeep that's gone out the back. He's following a plane there that looks like it's not that far off the ground, so maybe there is still something they need on that plane. You know,
possibly so. Yeah.
So that seems like a fairly logical kind of explanation for that mission. We think it starts, obviously, well, we know it starts in downtown, so you can see the skyscrapers, and it eventually moves out of downtown into a desert area, which we assume is going to be somewhere down towards where Trevor lives, which is the game's equivalent of Salton Sea, which, if you tuned into our map episode a couple of episodes back, you would have seen is quite a way out of LA, and actually quite a way into the sticks. That's certainly the view that he's got from the back of the plane seems to suggest it is out in the sticks, and then the screenshot of Franklin confirms it. So, Dan, anything else to add on that?
No, nothing else to add really. Just thanks to everyone who provided some evidence to back up our theories here, which is great. We can't read them all out because a lot of people said the same thing.
Yeah.
I particularly enjoyed the comments of Kid Oblivion, who said, "These videos started out good, but now you're just making up total bull cheese to pad out the clip." And he didn't say bull cheese, it was something far worse. And he goes, "What are you going to discuss next week? How the Zeppelin is actually a giant floating brain of the AI that's controlling the population of Los Santos." That's a good idea.
That is a good idea, actually. I like that idea.
Or that dogs will be controllable in the game based on the fact that the dogs sit in the front seat of the car. Again, good thinking, my friend. You can join the crew.
That is good. Well, you did mention that the Zeppelin might be some sort of surveillance thing, so maybe it's mind control as well.
Controlled by the dog who secretly controls Los Santos.
That's right.
And you'd laugh at that, but that's actually an ending of a previous Silent Hill game.
Well, there you go.
Well, there's a dog controlling the entire... Anyway, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, seriously, thanks for all your comments. Be some great feedback. Do keep tuning in every week. Next week, we're going to pursue more missions.
Probably going to do more missions and see what Dan can dig up on that. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Oh, but a final shout to Rockstar. Don't be afraid to release a 20-minute new trailer at any stage.
Or even better, invite us up to your HQ so we can have a look at the game.
Both equally good.
See you later.
Bye.